Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavai Tejasvinavati Tamastu Ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us. May he guide us and give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Om peace, peace, peace. And good evening. Nice to be back. We're still practicing COVID distancing, so Atma will be off camera today, but on mic. So sorry to have missed last week, but I'm fine now. So we are in the middle of Karma Yoga. And this was what, I keep forgetting, Sardhananda? Let me look here. Turiyananda. So, okay. All right. Atma, would you like to begin? We're about in the middle of it, where it starts. Sri Ramakrishna also says.
Sri Ramakrishna also says, Mother, take this your action and inaction, and give me pure devotion. Take this your sin and virtue, and give me pure devotion. Such an easy path for realizing God, suitable to everyone. No one has taught till now. Just as a cow takes all kinds of food when it is mixed up with a little oil cake, so also the Lord accepts all worship when it is tinged with devotion. Somehow or other, if we can but offer everything to Him, if we can but think that He is our dearest, our beloved, if we can but do everything, think every thought for His sake, then we are blessed. Like Sri Ramakrishna, the Lord Sri Krishna, the preacher of the Gita, also again and again reiterates in his teachings, whatever thou doest, whatever thou eatest, whatever thou offerest in sacrifice, whatever thou givest away, whatever austerity thou practices, O son of Kunti, do that as an offering unto me. Thus shalt thou be freed from the bondages of actions, bearing good and evil results, with the heart steadfast in the yoga of renunciation, and liberated thou shalt come unto me. Gita. That we are not able to put into practice such an easy teaching as this is undoubtedly a matter of great regret. He whose mind is attached to sense objects will, by performing actions prescribed by the scriptures and by the performance of his duty, gradually have his mind purified and finally attain desirelessness. That is why even the performance of action with desires is called karma yoga. That is also the reason why the injunctions of the scriptures are held in such high esteem. He who, setting aside the ordinances of the Shastras, acts under the impulse of desires, attains neither perfection nor happiness, nor the goal supreme. These are the words of the Lord. We can only offer everything to Him, then we need not be any more anxious, nor have fear, nor ransack the scriptures so much.
Yes, that's probably the easiest combination of the yogas. You know, we have the 4 yogas, and you can practice any one of them, but it's easier if you combine them. So, and you can combine all 4 of them, but you can also just combine a couple of them, and this is probably the easiest pair to combine. But of course, you know, if you're strictly just a karma yogi, then you don't have the devotional side to it, but you're still practicing detachment from the results. You're doing your duty, and you're doing it the best you can. You're doing it with total focus while you're doing it. And once you're done, then you leave it. You don't worry about whether you should have done it differently, or whether everybody's going to like you for it, or whether people are going to criticize you for it. You're just done with it because you did the best you could at the time. And so a karma yogi would do it with that attitude. Now, when you combine it with bhakti yoga, then you see you've offered it all to the Lord, whether, no matter how perfect or imperfect the results may be, I offer it all to you. And so that devotional attitude becomes a very easy way to practice karma yoga, easier really than just the pure karma yoga. And the pure bhakti yoga, you see, what are you going to do while you're working? You can't just be doing devotional practices all day. So we all have to do something. And so it's nice to be able to combine it with karma yoga so that you can do that. And of course, you can combine it with the other yogas as well. The fact that you're practicing concentration during karma yoga is a way of strengthening your jnana yogi, or excuse me, your raja yogi side of you, where in meditation you're trying to focus the mind on one thing. Well, if you've practiced focusing your mind while you're working, then you're a step ahead. It's not just something you do when you're meditating, it's something you're doing all the time. You're trying to be one-pointed in your concentration. So, and then, of course, the jnana yogi, the reason you can detach yourself so easily is because you realize that ultimately this is just a fleeting, passing phenomenon. It's not ultimately something that's real in the sense of everlasting. And so it promotes a sense of detachment. But really, just the combination of karma yoga and bhakti yoga is so simple that it's one that we should all try to cultivate. All right, let's continue.
No doubt this is not easily attained. Yet we need not lose heart. For the Lord says, gradually gaining perfection through many births, he reaches then the highest goal. If it be not attained in this life, it will be attained in the next life. But we should see that the ideal is not lost sight of. We must go on practicing, and we are sure to reach the goal one day. We have to become his completely. We have to surrender ourselves to him, completely giving up all our ego and pride, without in the least depending on ourselves or anybody else. This is the essence of the teachings of the Gita. It's very kind. If we can only depend on him, he gets everything done for us. Why, he's so promised in the Gita. My devotee never comes to any grief. The door of good never comes to any grief. This is another fundamental teaching of the Gita.
Right, and of course, giving up the pride and ego. Ramakrishna used to say that the ego is the biggest stumbling block to our realization. And so being able to do something that reduces your ego sense is extremely important. And now there was something else I was going to say. What was it? Oh, yes. Another attitude that we can cultivate with bhakti yoga is thinking that the Lord is working through me. So pray that the Lord will work through me and that all my actions are guided by him. So that's another way of doing it rather than just offering all the results to the Lord. You can also think the Lord is working through you, and he is. Everything that we do is depending on really that cosmic energy, that prana that is coming through us as a living being. And that prana comes from the Lord. So everything we do is really being done by the Lord himself. Now, we talked a little bit about that the last time we met, which was 2 weeks ago, of course, in the sense of the Divine Mother, and how in the Chandi it's described that she is everything. She is Shakti, and she's all of these various things that we do. She's hunger and thirst and sleep and air and consciousness and intelligence and beauty and so forth. So all of these things are hers, and so all of those energies in us are hers. So from the Shakti angle, we think of it as coming from the Divine Mother, and the Divine Mother is the embodiment of Shakti, so that makes it pretty easy. Or it doesn't even have to be embodied, you know. We don't have to think of these deities in a personal form with a particular humanoid-like form. You can think of it as in the more abstract form, but that's harder. It's easier for us to be devoted to something that has some sort of a human form that we can relate to, and who can't relate to a figure that is motherly. You can feel that that's a very strong bond, in us. Almost everybody has a strong attachment for their mothers who gave birth to them and raised them and nurtured them and so forth. And so having devotion to a mother figure is probably one of the easiest things to do. All right, let's go on.
Man is only an instrument. The Lord alone is the agent. Blessed is he whom the Lord makes his instrument and gets his things done by him. Everyone has to do work in this world. No one can escape from that. But if anyone works for the fulfillment of his selfish end, his work, instead of working out his liberation, brings him down. The intelligent, doing work for him, escape from the binding effect of work. He's the doer, not I. This realization breaks all bondages. This, in fact, is the truth. The idea I am the doer is only an illusion, for it is difficult to find out this I. If we investigate into this I, we shall find that the real I merges in him. The ego consciousness with respect to the body, mind, and intellect is a delusion due to mere ignorance. They do not subsist to the last. None of these stands the best test of discriminative investigation. Finally, everything vanishes, and that alone is left from which everything proceeds, in which everything subsists, and to which everything returns at the end. That is Brahman, the Satchidananda, existence, knowledge, bliss. The witness of this ego consciousness, the creator, protector, and destroyer, and at the same time the infinite, unattached, and indifferent. Resting in him, this world machine is driven by his power. The sportive Lord looks at his own play and enjoys. To whomsoever he reveals this, he alone understands. The rest, even seeing, do not understand, thinking themselves separate from him. They get deluded. This is his Maya. This Maya vanishes if one works for the Lord, surrendering oneself to him.
Yeah, so both things we've already talked about are kind of summarized here, where you see that the Lord is doing all the work, not really you. And then there's this idea of jnana yoga here, where you're using your discriminative investigations. That's what a jnana yogi does. It uses its discrimination to figure things out. And so, as it says here, the ego consciousness with respect to the body, mind, and intellect is a delusion due to mere ignorance. So if we can use our discriminative powers that way, then we can help to break through that illusion. I thought we'd take a musical break at the moment, so we're going to listen to a song from the Vivekananda Oratorio on "Do to the work you have the right, but not to the fruits thereof." And then I should have brought the exact translation, but then it talks about pouring oil on fire is what happens when you try to pursue your desires. And so anyway, we can listen to it. Didn't catch it, if the last section was, "For the rewards of renunciation are greater than the fruits of action." So that was the last part. All right, well, we're ready to start the next section, which is also on work and karma yoga, and so it's by Sardananda. So I'll give us some reading here.
Work, a means to knowledge. On the one hand, we find that man has to work. He cannot be without work at any time. So long as he lives, he has to do some work or other. It's impossible for him to be without doing anything. On the other hand, the scriptures say, so long as man cannot renounce work completely, knowledge and liberation are a far cry for him. Now these two views are apparently quite antagonistic. It's very hard indeed to harmonize them. That's why in the Gita, the Lord teaches karma yoga, thereby harmonizing these two apparently contradictory views. He too says that so long as one does not reach that stage where one is free from all work, one will not attain knowledge or peace. There's no doubt about it. But then one does not reach that state by simply sitting idle without doing any work. That will make hypocrites of us. When we reach that state, we shall feel that we are without work, that we are different from the body and the senses, which alone are engaged in work. Work can be done in such a way that we can gradually reach this state of worklessness. The secret of karma yoga is to learn to be non-attached, even when one is engaged in intense activity. The body and the mind will be engaged in work, yet one will be at peace, non-attached. This is what is known as the state of worklessness. To be idle physically while building castles in the air is not to be without work. That is why Sri Krishna says in the Gita, he who sees inaction and action and inaction is intelligent among men, is a yogi and doer of all action. The yogi, while engaged in work, sees inactivity in it as he is non-attached to it. And he knows also that to be idle is far from being inactive. Such a yogi alone can do all work efficiently.
So, of course, if you've dedicated everything back to the Lord, it isn't work anymore. It's an offering. So you're not working in that sense because you're doing spiritual practice. You're not just doing work, you're doing a spiritual practice. So with that devotional attitude, you've gotten around this dilemma, being active when you're inactive and inactive when you're active. So as he says, once you reach that highest stage, then you find that there isn't any real action. Also, you realize it's all a temporary process. Everything that's going on in the world is change that doesn't add up to anything. You know, when you look at the physics of the cosmos, you see that everything in the universe seems to be changing, but there are a lot of things that never change. The total amount of energy never changes. The total amount of angular momentum never changes. The total amount of charge never changes. The total amount of regular momentum never changes. So the universe at the small level seems to be changing, but if you look at the whole scope of things, nothing's really changing. It just keeps going around. It's sort of like a barber pole. It looks like it's going up, but it's not really going anywhere. It's just sitting there on the wall. So if you can keep that in mind too, that everything that we're doing here in the world is just what we have to do because we're an embodied being for the moment, but we're going to devote all those actions back to the Lord, and so that frees us from any binding karma. All right, let's go on.
We have therefore to engage our mind and body in work, but at the same time keep ourselves non-attached and be at peace. This state wherein work and knowledge are thus harmonized will be attained by all of us, though it is natural with the liberated. The aspirant has to attain it with great effort and practice. He has to attain it gradually through intense work, yielding happiness and misery. How to harmonize work and knowledge is the main theme of the first few chapters of the Gita. In that age, people, not being able to understand the true spirit of the Scriptures, confounded work and knowledge. They thought the two were contradictory and mutually exclusive. Now, even now we find this idea prevalent. Some people think that if we want to be religious, we have to go to the forest, that any service rendered to our fellow beings will not help us spiritually. Again, there are others who think that to be in the world with wife and children is the very acme of life. They're not able to understand that kind of knowledge for which one has to leave the world and all work. They think such a knowledge to see something unnatural, the state of inertness. The first section is forgotten, that the Scriptures say that unless our mind and intellect are purified by work, we cannot attain knowledge. The other section, who think themselves learned without going through the Scriptures, do not accept that Scriptures teach that the goal of man is to attain knowledge.
Now here again we find that Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga help each other, because you can go on working and not think about the spiritual aspect of working, offering it to the Lord, or doing it as the Lord working through you. But if you use your discrimination, you realize that everything that you do doesn't have a permanent effect. So you cook a nice meal and everybody enjoys it, and it doesn't help the next day. Everybody's still hungry. Suppose you negotiated a peace treaty in the Near East 50 years ago. Well, you probably did a wonderful job, but it doesn't seem to have lasted. Back to the same problem. Somebody else is going to have to negotiate a peace. You can build a lovely structure or a great company that's doing great work. But after you're gone, if your family doesn't keep it going, it's probably not going to last. And eventually it's going to be put out of business. Just think of people that created vinyl records or 8-track tapes, or even now CDs. They're becoming obsolete, and the other two have been obsolete quite a while. Although some people love to collect vinyl, I must say they find it fun to go back to that old technology. But all of these things tend to fade away after a while. And if you think about it, suppose there's some great solar disaster, a solar flare, and it knocks out the electrical grid. We could be out without all of our fine electrical things. We'll be back to using Thomas Brother guides instead of the Google map on your phone. In fact, your phones won't be working. Your internet won't be working. Your cars may not even be working because they run on computers now. God knows how much of their components will bite the dust. It's such a process. So we have to really be detached from the world that we live in, because it may not always be there for us. So keeping that discriminative thing in mind, eventually you realize that being attached to work is kind of futile. You need to do something else with it. You need to offer it to the Lord, or at least be detached from the results. All right.
The Scriptures enjoin on man their study first, for then only will we be religious-minded. Religion is based on work. At first, man has to engage himself in various kinds of work with the idea of attaining spirituality. When on account of this work he experiences happiness and misery in turn, the idea that this world is unreal slowly dawns on him. Then he tries to work without any selfish motive for duty's sake. He learns to work for work's sake. By so doing, his mind gradually gets purified till at last he does all work without any selfish motive whatsoever. This is real renunciation. When once man gets the spirit of renunciation, the desire to know the truth arises in him, and he realizes it easily. He attains to the knowledge of oneness. This idea of oneness pervades the whole world. Once man gets the knowledge of oneness, he's never again overpowered by ignorance, even as when we have once known the nature of the mirage, we never again mistake it for water. Even after attaining the knowledge of oneness, a person may again return to the world of diversity to work as a teacher of mankind, or to fulfill some other divine mission. It is within the control of the jnani to work or not to work. But then, though he comes back to the world of diversity, he no longer takes it as real, like ordinary people.
Right, it's more like being in a drama. And you know the drama's not going to last forever. It might go on for 10 performances or 100 performances or 200 performances. But eventually your role will come to an end, a performance, or you'll get too old to play the particular part. So if you take that idea that you're just a part in the Divine Mother's drama, that becomes another way to do this. And then, of course, this idea of oneness, you can let that idea grow by, again, taking the attitude that not only is the Lord working through you, but the Lord resides in all the people you might be working with or for. So if you have any kind of service occupation, then you feel that you're serving the Lord through the people that you're working with. Now, and you have to be detached from the results. I mean, I used to be a school teacher, and I did the best job I could. And some of the students thought I was the best teacher they ever had, and some of them hated me. So you can't win. I mean, there's always going to be some people that appreciate what you did and some people that don't appreciate what you did. And certainly in the classroom setting, you can't please everybody in the classroom because they all have different learning styles, and you've got a restricted amount of time. And if you can try to use different approaches, but even that backfired a few times. I would try to say, now you could, if you think of it this way, fine, or you can think of it this way. And you always get a couple of kids saying, don't confuse me with another way. I'm just getting used to the first way. So some students didn't want to hear another way. So that's just the way it is. And of course, say you're in the medical profession. Well, some of the patients are going to follow all your advice and get well. Some of them may follow all the advice, but they may have so many complications that are undetected, they may not get well. So you just do the best you can, and the results follow afterwards. And so again, this idea of discriminating in your work and realizing the nature of Maya and how things are changeable, and you can't really pin anything down completely, really helps to free you. All right.
If we forget that work is the only means to attain knowledge, we shall get into difficulties. All kinds of work, from the mending of shoes to the reading of scriptures, help man to proceed towards knowledge if he does it disinterestedly. Thousands of sannyasins and householders are struggling to attain knowledge, but unfortunately a great majority of them, instead of giving up selfish interest in work, are trying from the very beginning to give up work itself as far as possible, with the idea that it is all Maya. The result is all works for selfish ends, like eating, drinking, so forth. Remain more works of charity, service to the helpless, love of country, which do good to others, are first given up. For such works are cumbersome and difficult. As a result, the whole country is saturated with selfishness and is going down to destruction. If all these people should follow the teachings of the Gita and work disinterestedly for the good of others and for the good of the country, for example, they serve the poor and educate the illiterate, then this disinterested service would help them towards God realization, and the country too will be benefited.
No, of course, that's why Swami Vivekananda founded the mission end of the Ramakrishna order. As you know, the Ramakrishna order has two wings to it, the Mott side and the mission side. And they both do service. The Mott side does service in the form of teaching, providing pujas, meditations, meditation instruction, services like arati and daily pujas, as well as big celebrations and so forth, classes on the various scriptures. And then the mission side does unselfish action in the form of education, in the form of medical help, in the form of relief work during disasters, or social projects such as reforestation, or raising the level of welfare in the villages, perhaps providing them with technologies such as local gas production from waste materials and so forth. So this is why Swami Vivekananda liked to do that, because he saw there was a tendency for some of the other religious orders to become a little bit myopic and just focus on their own liberation without working for the benefit of humanity. So that's why we have that twin ideal in the Ramakrishna order. All right.
It is only when the mind is purified by karma yoga that it is able to attain knowledge. Ramakrishna used to say, God is beyond the reach of the impure mind. It is cognized by the pure mind. So the only means to knowledge is to do work without any selfish motive. If we can do work in this way, then work of any kind whatsoever is sure to bring about realization in time. Work by itself is not despicable. The defect is with us. For we do work prompted by selfishness, and thus get caught in it like the caterpillar in its cocoon. That's why Krishna says, thy right is to work only, but never to the fruits thereof. Be now not the producer of the fruits of thy action, neither let thy attachment be towards inaction. Let the body, intellect, and the senses be engaged in intense work. But you must be established in the self, which is beyond all work. Be a man ever conscious of your true nature, and thus be at peace.
Now, this paragraph goes on quite a while, so I'll break in for a moment. You know, sometimes people think that the essence of karma yoga is to do good actions to counteract any evil actions you've done. And that's certainly a part of it. You always want to do actions that produce the most good as possible and the least harm. But when you think about it, that's not the ultimate end of karma yoga, because you'll never get out of karma completely that way. Because no matter what you do, no matter how good it seems, as kind of my examples with teaching went, there's some results that won't be as good as you would have liked them. And anything that you do to help one individual or one group of people or one niche of the environment may have a negative effect on some other niche in the environment. So we try to minimize that, but you can't minimize it completely. So we have to remember that. And so karma yoga isn't just about doing good actions to counteract bad actions, but that helps to purify the mind and helps us choose what kind of work we're going to do. But you have to add the attitudes of doing it with detachment, doing it with discrimination, doing it with devotion, not seeing yourself as the doer, but seeing the Lord as the doer. So that really has to be in there too, not just doing good work to counteract bad. All right.
Do not yield to any weakness, and take things which are transient as real, and thereby suffer misery. Go on working unselfishly. This is true sannyasa. It's also karma yoga. Know that to be devoted to action, which is called renunciation. True renunciation and selfless work both lead to the same goal. Both renunciation and performance of action lead to freedom. But all the same, the idea that knowledge is superior to action is not removed from Arjuna's mind, for he finds that when knowledge dawns, there's no work left. So he says, if Arjuna, knowledge is superior to action, why then, O Kashava, dost thou engage me in this terrible action? Arjuna here forgets that the knowledge of which Sri Krishna talks as the goal of mankind is beyond all limiting conditions, which the knowledge of which he talks is conditioned. So Sri Krishna again explains to him and praises the path of work thus. O Arjuna, do not think that this path of work is something new. It is also like knowledge and devotion, one of the ancient paths to realization. Many great souls like Janaka and others have attained realization by this path. That path of work is about to become extinct. No one works for the good of the many, giving up his selfish motives. Even on religion, the selfishness is encroaching, not to talk of on other fields of human activity. Those who are means-minded, weak, slaves to their senses, and dependent cannot attain to realization by this path. He who is ever anxious about his own self-power, even about his own salvation, can never be a true karma yogi. He alone can be a true karma yogi who is spirited and broad-minded, without caring for any personal loss, forgets himself in alleviating the misery of the afflicted in the service of his country or some great soul.
Yeah, you know, another way to look at this is that any yoga path wants to lead us closer to the infinite, undivided, unchanging, which in terms of our daily activities and desires translates into freedom and oneness, and which is love, and peacefulness. So the infinite translates into freedom, the undividedness translates into love, and the unchanging aspect translates into peacefulness. And so doing karma yoga or any of the yogas helps us to attain that. And of course, they're not really three things. So if you can attain any one of them, you get all three as a package. We see them as three, but once you've realized it, they're not really three. It's just one. So, for example, if you take the attitude of oneness and you do work as service to others, the God in others, because you know that you're truly one with everyone that you're around, then that oneness increases and you realize God through that oneness. If you do work with detachment, that's very freeing because you're not worried about the results anymore. You're not disturbed. And since you're not disturbed, you're more peaceful. So you see, you get all three aspects in one. All right, so next week, Lord willing, we will meet and we will go on to the section on love of God. So we'll be going on to Bhakti Yoga. All right, we'll close with a chant. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is. From Brahman all, yet is it still the same. Om, peace, peace, peace.